Oh, of course. Who could have possibly predicted that the start of this video would crash harder than the Game of Thrones finale? Except here, we don't even have dragons. Or a budget. Well, well, dear listener. If you're still here, that can only mean one thing. You've got nothing better to do, and you're once again ready for another round of gloriously pointless epicness. Our noble hero is currently occupied with some profoundly heroic training, or possibly trying to figure out how a kettle works. Either way, today you're stuck with me. The mission is simple. Launch the grand intro. So, wish me luck. And you, enjoy the show. Oh no, 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 no. What is this?
I'll fix your problem.
Wait! That's not the intro!
No.
No problem. Working professional.
Okay.
Gandalf Almighty! Shield the children's eyes!
Ready?
How I can grateful to you?
Blasted machine! Who was in charge of loading the files? Oh, right. Me. Mufasa Almighty! I asked for drama, but not this level of emotional sabotage. I'm a narrator. I tell stories. I do not handle whatever this technological abomination is. By Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Where is that bloody video? Fine, whatever. Old school never fails. And enough of this cursed Disney sorcery. Now then, settle in, dear listener. Tonight I'll tell you a story based on actual events. A tale of a hero whose life is a glorious parade of failures, absurdity, and hobbies so bizarre, even I won't have to exaggerate. This time, every legend starts with a great hero, a mighty warrior, a master of the blade, or at least someone with a plan. But not this one. A long, long time ago, in a land far, far away, on the shores of the blackest of Black Sea, where even the seagulls look like they desperately need a vacation, he appeared, not the chosen one, not a messiah, and definitely not someone known for making rational decisions. Just him, a child, in a balaclava and a hoodie. Yes, that exact outfit, since birth. Why? No one knows. Maybe a curse, maybe just style. I'm a narrator, not a detective. Don't ask me. That was our hero. Well, hero might be pushing it. More like a guy around whom all sorts of nonsense tends to happen, epic nonsense. This isn't a fairy tale, and it's definitely not Disney. This is the glorious, ridiculous, and completely unauthorized story of one very questionable individual, based on actual events. Unfortunately, this is an odyssey with a budget and sanity at 0. Age 4. Most kids were busy arguing over juice boxes, or which cartoon hero could beat up the others. Our hero, he was busy, not dying, struck by a treacherous affliction, the kind that ends most origin stories before they start. He stood, lay at the edge of the abyss. But like in Game of Thrones, there is only one God and his name is Death. And there is only one thing we say to Death: not today. A legion of healers rallied, armed with syringes, science, and that one nurse wielding something probably not approved by the medical board. By their side stood family, fierce, stubborn, and entirely unwilling to let go. Together, they pulled him back from the brink. Them. And of course, the balaclava and hood, an outfit so iconic, even fate had to pause and mutter, "All right, kid, you've got style." And so the tale pressed on, now with upgraded plot armor and a touch of emotional damage. After recovering, our hero got his first real taste of life, and like any young soul tasting freedom, he dove headfirst into hobbies. The first adventure, breakdance. Yes, break, dance, fueled by passion, hype, and possibly one too many hip-hop videos. He joined a dance crew for exactly one day. Turns out, flipping on your head isn't nearly as fun as it looks, especially when gravity gets involved. And just like that, his enthusiasm vanished. Poof! Gone. Like Spider-Man after Thanos snapped his fingers. Another dream dusted. Another cringe memory unlocked. But hey, at least he didn't pull a muscle. This time, yes, the art phase. A tale as old as I can totally draw hands. Fresh from the ruins of his breakdance dreams, our hero took up the noble path of creation. Armed with pencils, hope, and one Bob Ross video, he marched into art school. At first, glorious, charcoal, ink, the sacred scent of overpriced sketchbooks. But soon, the magic faded. His mind conjured legends. His hands produced cursed spaghetti. After one heroic week of stick figures and abstract trauma, he proclaimed, next. No tears, no regrets. Just XP earned, another destiny dodged, and a sketchbook no one's allowed to open. Ever. And then, destiny struck. Not with thunder nor prophecy, but with a lump of colorful goo. No teachers, no scrolls of ancient knowledge. Just one child, 10 fingers, and a glorious mountain of plasticine. He sculpted creatures, warriors, questionable dragons, all slightly lopsided, all absolutely majestic. Unlike his doomed art phase, this one clicked. For once, his hands obeyed. His imagination found form, squishy, bendy, slightly sticky form, and so he molded worlds, not for fame, not for glory, but for the sheer joy of creation, until life got complicated and he traded clay for chaos. But the spark, still there, somewhere, probably under the bed. And so our ever-enigmatic protagonist approached the pool of minor drowning, a fearsome body of water, 3 feet deep and brimming with chlorinated doom. Did he don swimming gear, as mere mortals do? Ha! Please! He entered clad in his sacred armor, the balaclava and hood, for honor demands consistency, and common sense was off that day. Lifeguards raised brows, children pointed. One elderly lady whispered, "He's going to drown heroically." To which fate replied, "Oh, you have no idea." Thus began the great aquatic miscalculation. And then, splash! Our hero, ever bold, stepped into the chlorinated abyss. Still cloaked in his sacred garments, hood up, balaclava on. Fashion waits for no pool, but almost instantly, something felt off, namely buoyancy and the complete, utter absence thereof. He had entered the pool with the confidence of a dolphin. Unfortunately, he wasn't a dolphin, he was a brick, a very dramatic, fully dressed brick. Turns out he'd never actually learned how to swim. A minor detail, like knowing how parachutes work after you've jumped. Water surged, arms thrashed. The pool, shallow, embarrassed and slightly amused, watched in silence. Some lifeguard reached for a whistle, another reached for popcorn. And yet, against all logic and 3 very confused physics teachers, he emerged. Not because he could swim, but because sheer narrative stubbornness kept him afloat. That, and possibly air bubbles trapped in the balaclava. He survived. Because death looked at him and said, "Seriously? In a hoodie? Nah, too weird." After failing to swim in what was basically fancy tap water, our hero turned to something drier, safer, less likely to trigger a lifeguard. Books, those ancient papery relics adults kept weaponizing as education. But to him, they were arsenals. Inside those dusty tomes, dragons, wizards, warlocks with deep emotional issues and questionable fashion. Reading wasn't homework. It was a gateway drug to heroism. He wasn't prepping for school. He was training for Middle-earth. He devoured fantasy like Netflix drops seasons, all at once. No breaks, no regrets. For the first time, he wasn't drowning. He was soaring, armed with nothing but a library card and dangerously vivid imagination. But wait! Around that same time, something else happened. Something that would change everything. And no, it wasn't a haircut. Just pause, charging across the field like a 4-legged missile. One kid, one hoodie, and her Nika, which, in case you didn't know, means victory. Though at the time, he just thought it sounded cool. She didn't just run into his arms. She stormed into his life, a furry embodiment of chaos, loyalty, and questionable decisions. From that day on, he wasn't alone anymore, because victory had literally chosen him. And yes, she shed a lot. This was the beginning of a friendship louder than any prophecy, and, frankly, way more fun. And so it happened. The moment every great hero faces, the choosing of destiny. Our hooded philosopher, squatting like a Jedi in deep meditation, gazed into the cloud and saw his future. Option 1, sailor, captain of a mighty vessel, charting unknown waters, dodging krakens, yelling, "Hard to starboard!" purely for dramatic effect. Option 2, soldier, stoic, tactical, explosions in the background, slow-motion walk, Michael Bay nodding in approval. No hesitation, no doubt. He would become one, or both. Because why pick one life-threatening career when you can double the drama? What sparked this bold choice? Books, wonder, or just a burning desire to wear very cool boots? September 1st. While other kids just tried not to pee themselves, our hero was already performing. Hand-picked, or possibly randomly sacrificed, to recite poetry in front of the entire school. An honor shared by exactly 2 others, the teacher's kid and a boy who could already write in cursive. Witchcraft. And there he stood, balaclava on, hood up, radiating main character energy like a Skyrim NPC trapped in the wrong cutscene. The poem, forgotten. The moment, legendary. And just like that, he was hooked. The stage, the silence before the first word, the spotlight, or at least the flickering ceiling lamp, it called to him. Inside that balaclava, an actor, a host, a dramatic force of nature trapped in a school uniform 2 sizes too big. Yes, our hero had discovered the thrill of performance, except when the script was 12 pages long and written in ancient bureaucratic verse. But when it hit right, oh, he delivered lines with the confidence like a level 1 bard with +5 to charisma and 0 fear of public failure. Thus began the era of school stages, awkward applause, and the birth of a legend who could recite, improvise, and occasionally panic halfway through. Academically, he was a tactician, too cunning for mediocrity, too rebellious for excellence. He dwelled in that mythical realm, the Kingdom of Fours, where 5s are earned by accident and 3s are dodged with minimum mana. While others fried their brains for gold stars, our hero practiced the noble craft of efficient survival. Just enough brilliance to seem impressive, just enough laziness to remain sane. Not a geek, not a sloth, but a mythic presence in every grade book. A rogue, dancing on the razor's edge of the honor roll. And thus, the curtain rose. The stage, modest, the stakes absurdly high. Our hero emerged encased in a costume so green, so rotund, so unapologetically spherical. He became the watermelon. Not a watermelon, the watermelon. A force of nature in rind form, fully committed, emotionally ripe, a method actor of mythic caliber. Rumors say he slept in the fridge for authenticity. Others claim he whispered, "I am fruit," until the cucumbers got nervous. No lines, no motion, just presence. And the audience? Shaken. A teacher dabbed a tear. A child snapped a pencil in reverent awe. It was his first role. A taste of glory, juicy, symbolic, legendary. Theater would never recover. Another school play, another fruit role. But this time, something had changed. He didn't just play the watermelon, he became the watermelon. Round, mysterious, brimming with juice and purpose. The audience? Silent, stunned, possibly confused. The teachers? Wiping tears. Or maybe just allergies. Who's to say? What powered this unforgettable performance? Was it raw talent? Years of fruit-based training? Number, it was her, his mother, the unseen director, the myth, the legend, armed with patience, dramatic instinct, and a hairbrush used as a microphone. She rehearsed every blink, every wobble, every melon-inspired nuance. Together, they crafted a performance so juicy, so oddly profound, it still haunts PTA meetings to this day. From that moment on, there was no escape. The stage had tasted him, and the stage wanted more. His watermelon days behind him, he rose through the ranks, from side roles to center stage, from background fruit to master of ceremonies. School events, he hosted them. Holiday concerts, starred in them. The New Year's show, guess who? A fate sealed not by choice, but by talent. And by that one teacher who said, "He's a good speaker, let him be the host." Even his own graduation, he didn't just attend it, he hosted it. But inside, the fire still burned. The dream of sailor or soldier, he demanded strength. And strength, dear viewer, comes not from multiplication tables, it comes from the hunt. While other kids played Minecraft, he tracked real prey, rabbits, ducks, quails, armed with a gaze of steel and a camouflage jacket 2 sizes too big, a child of the wild, a hunter of the steppe. The wild had taught him many things, but dodging punches, not one of them. And so our sailor-hunter poet wandered into a sacred arena of sweat and shin kicks, Muay Thai. Was it about discipline, self-defense, or maybe he just fancied punching strangers without legal consequences? No one knows, not even he. What we do know is this: the gloves went on, the bruises came fast, and poetry was no longer on the syllabus. Years of chaos had forged a weapon, small, hooded, slightly unhinged, but weirdly effective. In the sacred arena of Muay Thai, our young warrior found his rhythm, his kicks precise, his punches surprisingly legal, his enthusiasm borderline concerning. Opponents fell like NPCs in a badly balanced tutorial. Only one still stood, a final boss in gym shorts. But our hero, he wasn't afraid. He was having fun. Turns out, punching things was his love language. Who knew? And then, it happened. The prophecy. Not written in ancient scrolls, but spoken by an old man on a bench looking suspiciously like Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, he said. Our hero, drenched in sweat and adolescent wisdom, nodded solemnly. Of course, he whispered, having absolutely no idea what that meant. Still, it sounded epic. So he carried the phrase like a sacred spell, vowing to never use his skills for evil. And for the most part, he didn't. Except that one time. But that guy did take the last slice of pizza. So really, justice was served. He had the moves. He had the momentum. What he didn't have was a plan for when the other guy kicked harder, and so he fell. Not like a hero in slow motion, more like a potato sack with ambition. The ground was cold, his pride even colder. But just when the story could have ended with a dramatic fade to black. A voice echoed through the void. "It ain't about how hard you hit." The hero blinked. Was that? Yes, it was him, Rocky, freakin' Balboa, standing beside him like a sweaty guardian angel of motivational cinema. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And that day, a new stat unlocked. Resilience plus 10. It worked in the ring. And, as fate would soon demonstrate, it worked even better in life. Around that time, destiny arrived, in the form of a beige, humming, overheating computer. And with it, games. Not noble quests, not great causes, but pixels, explosions, and the sacred art of yelling at lag spikes louder than any warrior's war cry. Was it productive? Nope. Was it character building? Also nope. But for a kid in the midst of a transitional age, where hormones outpaced logic, gaming wasn't the worst path. Could have been crypto. And there he stood, still, silent, thinking suspiciously hard. Not about grades, not about taxes, but about epic tales, dusty legends, and the timeless thrill of a good roundhouse kick. He loved history. He loved martial arts. He loved sports, duels, and any fantasy book where someone yells, "For the realm," before smashing a helmet. So he wondered, is there a hobby where I can mix all the things I love? Old swords, new bruises, and historically justified violence. Yes, there is a sacred path, forged in tradition, tempered by sweat, and decorated with mildly concerning bruises. There he was, standing still, in a hoodie and balaclava, not plotting a heist, just pondering his life choices, while others chased careers, clout, or crypto. He sought something deeper. Is there a hobby where I can combine history, martial arts, sports, and an irrational love for medieval stuff? A noble search, one that started not in a library or a dojo, but in the sacred temple of all lost souls, YouTube, at 3 a.m. Sword fighting in armor, legal, tournaments. Wait, is this Dark Souls but sweaty? This is HMB, where adults with day jobs beat each other with axes to feel something again. It's like gym, but with helmets and fewer influencers. Here, legends are forged, mostly in the lower back pain department. Why play for honor when you can actually dislocate a shoulder for it? At last, a place where history, violence, and cardio finally became one. And so, clad in armor, pride, and a very real lack of cardio, our hero entered his first boo-hurt. His blade sang, his enemies fell. For 10 glorious seconds, he was the chosen one. Then the tide turned. 1,000 foes rallied against him. Well, almost 1,000. Okay, 5. Fine. 4.5, if we're counting the guy who tripped over his own axe. But numbers didn't matter. The universe had clearly decided this was a learning experience. And as steel clashed, and his heroic internal monologue was replaced by, "Wait, is my helmet supposed to spin like that?" one truth emerged. He might have picked the wrong hobby. Just maybe. Some fall in battle. Others fall directly into the ER. Our brave warrior, once proud and upright, now lay wrapped like a medieval burrito. Muscles pulled, armor dented, ego undergoing intensive care. A nurse whispered, "First time?" He nodded in several directions at once, and thus the lesson was learned. Glory is heavy, helmets are heavier, and 5 guys with sticks can, in fact, break your soul. Temporarily, of course, because heroes don't quit. They just take a short, highly medicated pause. And thus, the mighty warrior fell. Not to sword nor flame, but to a doctor's note and a suspicious crunching sound in his back. The era of battles, bruises, and questionable hygiene was over. But as one quest ends, another begins. For deep within him stirred an ancient dream, not of thrones or tournaments, but of tides, of steel giants cutting through waves, of maritime glory. And so, our hero traded helmet for hoodie, sword for pen, and entered a new battlefield, the entrance exam arena. Here, the foes were math problems, the armor, coffee, the stakes, a ticket to the sea. It was time to fight not with fists, but with formulas and knowledges, and the raw willpower of a man who really didn't want to stay on land forever. And so, the final trial began. Not in a dungeon, but in a beige classroom with flickering lights and the unmistakable stench of stress. Before him, a test. Behind him, nothing. Beside him, cheating was forbidden. And ahead, the sea. The examiners stood tall, like dementors in polyester suits, draining joy and sharpening pencils with menacing precision. But our hero, he clutched his pen like a sword, fueled by dreams of steel decks and open water. This wasn't just a test. It was a boss fight. Against all odds and several trick questions about trigonometry, he did it. Our hero passed the trials of ink and despair and was granted entry to a temple of true power, the Maritime Academy. Not Hogwarts, but it had uniforms, rituals, and professors with the power to ruin lives with a red pen. He donned the sacred garb of a cadet, crisp, white, mildly itchy, and stepped forth to begin his training. To navigate storms, seas, and cafeteria queues with the steady hand of a future officer. The boy was gone. A midshipman stood in his place. Still couldn't draw hands, though. Once, the water had nearly claimed him. But now, armed with a Nietzsche quote and questionable confidence, he returned. "That which does not drown me," he declared, "makes me a better mariner." Thus began his new quest to become the kind of sailor who doesn't instantly sink if he falls off the ship. He trained, he swam. He may have bought goggles far too dramatic for the local pool, and with each lap, the fear sank and the legend rose. Still kept the hoodie and balaclava. Style is eternal. While others discovered student bars, he discovered the library. Not because he was boring, but because he had a mission. He studied like a man possessed. Navigation, meteorology, even ship stability, whatever that is. True, math still made his soul weep, and drawing charts by hand. Let's just say, if he ever had to plot a course manually, the ship would have gone straight into the Bermuda Triangle. Thankfully, it was the 21st century. GPS existed, and so did Cottrell plus Z. And so the boy who once dreamed of epic quests found himself in one, just not the kind with dragons or glory. Real adulthood arrived not with a bang, but with funerals. One by one, fate claimed the people he loved most, like some cosmic tax for chasing his dreams. Rain fell, umbrellas opened, and the young mariner stood still, realizing that some storms come from within. No battles were fought that day, but something inside him changed. Childhood had officially ended. 2014. While others chose their factions in strategy games, his country got one assigned. A war began, not in history books, not in dusty museums, but on live TV, just a few hundred miles east. Our hero? Still a cadet, still dreaming of oceans. But suddenly maps weren't just homework, and patriotism wasn't just a line in a movie. The world had changed, and whether he liked it or not, he realized he had to be ready. They say, if you want peace, prepare for war. Our hero heard that once, and, well, he took it a little too seriously. Some people buy a coffee machine. He bought a rifle. While others watched the news with popcorn, he was crawling through mud in borrowed gear, reading banned manuals like bedtime stories, and practicing tactical reloads in the mirror. Airsoft, please, this wasn't a game. This was training. His weekends became war drills, his bookshelf a national security concern, his hobbies, shooting, hiking, disappearing for days at a time, just in case. You know, civilization ended on a Tuesday. No one asked him to do it. No one paid him to care. But somewhere deep down, he knew what was coming, and he wanted to be ready. Just as our hero thought life was done testing him with swords, exams, and existential crises, fate, that drama-loving playwright, delivered a new kind of blow. Not a duel, a diagnosis. Illness struck the one closest to him. No glory, no armor, just hospital walls and quiet prayers. Another trial, one he couldn't fight with fists. But like every challenge before, he faced it head-on. The trial was harsh, but not unbeatable. The illness once feared, defeated. The closest person to our hero stood tall again, and the hero right there beside them, both dressed in gray hoodies. Not for stealth, just a coincidence, or fate's idea of a matching skin. No medals, no speeches, just quiet victory and the next chapter. While fate hurled trials like logs into a fire, time marched on, and somewhere, beyond the chaos of hospital corridors and shooting ranges, a spark of light appeared. Our protagonist, stubborn as ever, managed the impossible. He graduated, yes, a real diploma, from a real maritime academy. No Photoshop, no AI, just pain, sweat, and questionable cafeteria food. Now a certified navigator, ready to steer ships across oceans, or at least not crash them instantly. It wasn't glory, it wasn't fortune, but it was progress. And in a world that kept throwing punches, he just learned how to dodge. He had a diploma, he had a job, and life once again had a brick, just for his face. His career began in the kind of regions most people only visit on warning maps, pirate zones, the kind where cargo ships sail fast, lights off, and fingers on alarms. A romantic start? Hardly. But you can't call yourself a mariner until you've outrun a few boats with too many antennas. Then, the tropics, malaria country, where every mosquito buzzed like a war crime and bit like betrayal. He fought with repellent long sleeves and pure stubbornness, because it wasn't just about survival. It was about showing the bugs who's boss. They didn't care, but he did. The ocean, of course, had a sense of theater. So at the Cape of Good Hope, it sent him a storm. Not just any storm. The kind that makes ships groan, steel twist, and men rethink life choices. The good news? No iceberg. The bad news? Everything else. These weren't one-hit disasters. A leak hit the forward superstructure. Water came inside. He and the crew bailed it out. Buckets, boots, and soaked sarcasm. Less like Titanic, more like Tritanic. And no, nobody played the violin. And then, of course, fire. In the engine room, a sharp alarm, smoke, training put to use. No panic, no glory, just quick action, hot air, and a shared look between crewmates that said, again, seriously. 5 different tests, 5 different voyages. Each time, he got up, did the job, lived to tell the tale. And if that's not being ready for anything, then nothing is. And so our hero sailed on. Fatigue, jet lag, absurd captains, all endured and overcome. He worked hard, saved money, the kind of savings that make you think dangerous thoughts, like, maybe I'll buy a house. Maybe it's time to settle down. Maybe, just maybe, life is finally going my way. Oh dear. That, my friends, was the most ominous maybe in the entire story. February 2022, a headline, a broadcast, and just like that, the unthinkable became real. Russia had attacked Ukraine, our hero's country, his home. Shock, disbelief, silence. But deep down, the decision had already been made, long before the first shot was fired. When the world fell apart in 2022, our hero was on the far side of it, aboard a ship near South Korea, safe, warm, and blissfully far from exploding things. Naturally, he did the only logical thing. He quit, bought a plane ticket, then a train ticket, then ignored every survival instinct humanity had evolved. The closer he got to home, the fewer people he saw heading the same way. And when he finally arrived at the border, alone, jet-lagged in a hoodie, the guards didn't even ask for documents, just stared as if to say, "Wait, you're going in?" On purpose? Yes he was, because while others ran from the fire, this one, he brought marshmallows. And so, having journeyed halfway across the world, facing flight delays, dodgy train snacks, and the growing realization that he might be the only lunatic voluntarily heading into a war zone, our hero did what heroes do best. He signed paperwork. So much paperwork. Seriously, there were fewer forms to get on the ship, but each signature carved his name into history, or at least into several extremely confidential databases. Then he stood up, straightened his hoodie, and walked out, not as a sailor, not as a civilian, but as a soldier in the making, eyes burning with resolve, heart steeled with purpose, and body still running on airplane peanuts and pure adrenaline. Because he hadn't come home to hide. He'd come home to fight. After a month of training, where he learned which end of the gun goes boom, our hero was promoted to gunner on a real armored vehicle with real bullets and 0 adult supervision. Now he sat behind a machine gun, engine rumbling, eyes forward. No more drills. No more theory. This was the job, and he was ready to do it, with nerves of steel and a hoodie, because who needs a helmet when you've got purpose? He trained as a gunner. You know, point, click, kaboom. Nice, simple, loud. But war had other ideas. One week, he was laying mines like it was Minecraft on hardcore mode. The next, sneaking through enemy lines at 2 a.m., channeling Solid Snake with a caffeine addiction. Officially, none of that happened. Totally classified. So let's just say, he mostly worked nights. The kind of nights where owls blink twice and think, damn, that guy's committed. Recon, sabotage, silent takedowns. He didn't just do it all. He was the side quest. For nearly 6 months, our hoodie-clad hero danced through war zones like a protagonist with plot armor. Missions? Successful, morale, high, explosions, meh. He'd stopped flinching when things went boom, stopped ducking, started thinking maybe, just maybe, he was actually invincible. A classic mistake, because real life, unlike video games, doesn't pop up a health bar when you're about to take a hit. The first artillery strike didn't just hit the squad, it hit reality. We won't go into detail. Let's just say, the left side of his torso suddenly got very drafty. That day, he earned his first scar and a brand new respect for things that go boom. 3 weeks later, he was back. Turns out the shrapnel had missed all the important bits. Just soft tissue, they said. Nothing life-threatening. Nothing that would stop him. And like every good action hero with questionable decision-making, he returned right where he left off. Night, fire, lead, adrenaline. You start to see the world differently when you know every second could be your last. Colors get sharper, sounds get louder, and fear, well, it gets bored and leaves. It was night again. The kind of night where shadows breathe and silence lies. After hours in a basement barely holding against artillery, they stepped out and walked straight into hell. FPV drones, dozens, not the movie kind, the real kind, fast, precise, personal. The first one took his teammate, the kind you laugh with between shellings, gone, just like that. The rest cut down before they could react, and him, a shard tore through his leg, another burned into his face, his right arm paralyzed, and inside, a symphony of metal and blood. No one came, no backup, no radio chatter, just static, fire, and pain. He thought it was over. He wanted it to be over, but then blood filled his mouth, lungs refused to quit, and something deep inside whispered, "Not yet." So he crawled. Out of the smoke, the screaming wires and broken concrete, not for glory, not even for survival, just because quitting wasn't in his wiring. And so, the battlefield was gone, replaced by something far more terrifying. A hospital bed with floral curtains, no drones, no mortars, just cold tiles, warm soup, and a nurse way too cheerful for someone dealing with shattered humans. Our hero, still breathing. One arm limp, one leg stiff, face half charred, but alive. Barely. They said it was rest. But learning to walk again with metal rods and motivational posters, that's not rest. That's just war, with worse lighting. And so, it happened. Our hero, decorated with scars, shrapnel, and a suspiciously permanent limp, was finally discharged. No parade, just paperwork, a malfunctioning pen, and a signature that ended one kind of hell, and opened the door to another. Because while the army let him go, his body didn't. And as he hobbled out of the base on crutches like some war-torn flamingo, he knew this was just the start of a brand new battlefield. And so the hero cast aside his cane, Not into the sunset, though that would have looked cool. Behold, the moment of triumph. After a year of hobbling, jogging, and bureaucratic battlefield, his body was whole. His paperwork consecrated, his interviews conquered. Now he stood at the threshold of destiny. A titan of steel and rust awaited his command. Victory gleamed in his eyes, and in every stamp on those precious sheets. He raised a foot onto the gangway, ready to reclaim the waves as his kingdom. Surely nothing could derail this glorious ascent. Surely. Ah, yes, the captain, a man who wore his rank like armor, and his brand new Russian passport like a badge of honor. Our hero? Open, honest, perhaps too much so. The result? A conflict, born not from actions, but from one man's desperate need to feel superior. Insults flew, pride clashed with power, and soon a choice emerged. Bow down or stand tall. Keep the job or keep your dignity. What did our hero choose? Well, he'd been through worse, and this was just another storm. And so, it ended. No warning, no explanation, just a quiet message and a ticket ashore. One moment, a seafarer. The next, a very unemployed tourist in the glorious port of the United Kingdoms of Alemia. The ship sailed off into the sunset. And our hero? Well, let's just say he offered a heartfelt farewell. And so our hero sought a new beginning in the shining halls of the United Kingdoms of Alemia, a land of freedom. Provided you were rich, born there, or invisible. With hope in his heart and no legal papers to match, he stood before the great throne, and there he met His Majesty King Troop, ruler of all things, loud, gold, and suspiciously spray-tanned. His judgment swift, merciless. Begone, peasant. No trial, no second chance. Just a royal finger pointed toward the exit. And so our hero learned a valuable truth. In some kingdoms, dreams must wear the right passport. He could have stayed. There were options, dark alleys, false names, quiet crimes. But that would be another story, a villain's tale. And this was still a hero's journey. No place on the ship, no place in the kingdom. But perhaps, in the far frozen reaches of the map, in a land of cold winds and colder silence, there was one final chance, a northern kingdom. Distant, harsh, free, and so once more. Our hero moved forward, and so he arrived, with no plan, no home, and a truly magical talent for starting life over, for the millionth time. This was the Northern Kingdom, a land of fjords and forests, of oil beneath the ground, and kindness in every heart, where they say there's no bad weather, only bad clothing, and where colds are rare, but hearts are warm. He expected ice, he expected silence, he expected one more door to be shut, but instead, it opened. At the end of the hall sat King Haraldor, a ruler not of gold but of wisdom, one whose strength lies not in conquest but in compassion. No questions, no judgment, just a smile and a single word, stay. And so he did. He was given warmth, food, a roof, not as a burden, but as someone welcome, among the kindest people he'd ever met. And for the first time in years, he felt something strange, something quiet, but powerful. Peace. In the stillness of the north, beside a crackling fire and the soft howling of winter winds, he had a thought, a dangerous one. What if I told my story? Not for glory, not for riches, clearly wrong platform, but maybe, just maybe, someone, somewhere, needed it. And so, with all the wisdom of a man who had reinvented himself more times than a poorly written video game NPC, he made the most legendary, heartfelt, and unquestionably questionable decision of his life. He started a YouTube channel. Yes, really. Not a guild. Not a hidden vault. Just YouTube. And so it began, a new chapter, written in snow and silence. One man, one hoodie, one kingdom that insists there's no bad weather, just bad clothing. And trust me, he packed all the wrong ones. What awaited him here? Trials, triumphs, bureaucracy? Would he integrate into society, survive the winter, learn to pronounce the word Friluftsliv without accidentally summoning a Nordic demon? Where would he hike alone? Where would he hide the next treasure? What would he eat? Besides frozen pizza, pickled philosophy, and moral dilemmas. This is a Braxis Odyssey, and no, this isn't the beginning, nor is it the end of his story. A lifelong adventure, messy, meaningful, occasionally covered in snow. And now, you're part of it. Yes, you. Whether you hit subscribe by accident or divine purpose, you're in. Welcome aboard. Let's see where this madness goes. Ah, you're still here. Impressive. Or deeply concerning. All right, fine. A little spoiler. He's at it again. The hooded lunatic. Next time, a haunted house. Because clearly, ghosts were the missing ingredient. Or he's training, which usually involves falling, groaning, and discovering muscles that shouldn't exist. Maybe bunkers. Because nothing says great idea like crawling into post-war concrete with a GoPro, or hiding cash. Again, because burying money on camera is what all responsible adults do, whatever it is. It'll be overcomplicated, underprepared, and probably illegal in 3 countries. Can't wait. You shouldn't either.